Hello and welcome back to LPW Update, your number one source for the news and analysis that goes beyond the headlines and digs deep into the heart of the Roloff family saga. What we are about to share today is one of the most shocking and sensitive reports we have ever compiled. It's a story that, according to our sources, has been brewing in the shadows, a dark chapter that threatens to tear the Roloff dynasty apart at its very foundation. We're talking about a terrifying health crisis, a calculated deception, and a power grab so audacious it could redefine the future of Roloff Farms forever. This is the story of the conspiracy of saints and how Caryn Chandler allegedly used Matt Roloff's darkest moment to seize ultimate control. For years, we've watched the slow-motion fracturing of the Roloff family over the fate of the farm. But what if the biggest threat wasn't an argument over price, but a quiet, insidious takeover from within? Our exclusive theories, built on persistent insider reports, suggest that a recent, undisclosed health scare became the perfect smokescreen for a ruthless power play. The story you are about to hear is a detailed reconstruction of events that have been deliberately hidden from the public and even from the Roloff children themselves. Prepare yourselves because the fairy tale of Roloff Farms is about to take a very, very dark turn. Caryn hid Matt's health crisis from family to seize control. Before we dive into the chilling timeline of this alleged cover-up, if you believe in uncovering the truth and want to stay ahead of the curve on all things little people, big world, do me a favor right now. Smash that like button. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and ring that notification bell. Your support helps us dig deeper and bring these exclusive reports to light. You won't want to miss a single update. The perfect storm. To understand the gravity of what's happened, we must first set the stage. The last few years on Roloff Farms have been a crucible of tension. The dream of a family legacy, once the central pillar of the show, had crumbled. The sale of the north side of the farm to Matt's sons, Zach and Jeremy, had fallen through in spectacular and very public fashion. The fallout was immense. Zach and Tori moved an hour away to Battleground, Washington, creating a physical and emotional distance from Matt and Caryn. Jeremy and Audrey, after being denied their dream of raising their family on the farm, carved out their own path, purchasing a sprawling property nearby, but remaining emotionally estranged from the farm's core operations. The farm, once a bustling hub of family activity, became a quieter, more isolated kingdom. A kingdom ruled by one man, Matt Roloff, with his ever-present queen-in-waiting, Caryn Chandler. Our sources, who wish to remain anonymous for fear of reprisal, paint a picture of an increasingly isolated Matt Roloff. His body, which has endured dozens of surgeries and a lifetime of physical challenges due to his dystrophic dysplasia, was beginning to show more pronounced signs of wear and tear. His reliance on his crutches was more apparent than ever, his movements more labored. Yet, his mind remained as sharp and ambitious as always. He was deep into the construction of his dream house, a massive, modern mansion that stood as a monument to his own vision, a stark contrast to the family farmhouse that held so many memories. It was in this environment, a fractured family, an aging patriarch, and a new power structure solidifying around Matt and Caryn, that the perfect storm began to gather. Caryn, who had transitioned from farm manager to Matt's girlfriend and then fiancée, had become deeply enmeshed in every facet of Matt's life. She wasn't just his partner, she was his gatekeeper, his operations manager, his confidant. She knew the farm's finances, its legal structures, and its operational vulnerabilities better than anyone, perhaps even better than Matt himself. She was the power behind the throne, and according to our insiders, she was simply waiting for the right moment to make her move. That moment, tragically, would come at the expense of Matt's health. The day it happened was, by all accounts, unremarkable. A cool, overcast Tuesday in late autumn. Pumpkin season was over, the crowds were gone, and a quiet lull had settled over the farm. Matt, ever the restless visionary, was spending the evening in the office of his double-wide, the temporary home he'd lived in for years. He was hunched over a large drafting table, sketching out plans for a new attraction for the following year, a more accessible, state-of-the-art petting zoo. Caryn was with him, quietly working on her laptop at a nearby desk, managing emails and reconciling the final numbers from the pumpkin season. The only sounds were the scratching of Matt's pencil, the soft clicking of Caryn's keyboard, and the gentle hum of the heater. According to a detailed account pieced together from sources with knowledge of the farm's layout and Matt's habits, the incident occurred around 8 p.m. Matt, frustrated with a design flaw, pushed himself up to grab a different blueprint rolled up in a tube, leaning against a bookshelf across the small room. It was a routine movement, one he'd made thousands of times. But on this night, something was different. As he pivoted, the rubber tip of his right crutch is believed to have caught on the edge of a thick area rug. For a split second, he was off balance, suspended in a moment of terrifying instability. He tried to shift his weight, to use his formidable upper body strength to correct his posture, but his body betrayed him. The crutch skittered out from under him, and he went down hard. It wasn't a dramatic, crashing fall. It was a heavy, sickening thud, the sound of bone and flesh hitting the unforgiving floor. A sharp, guttural cry of pain erupted from Matt, a sound of pure agony that cut through the quiet evening. He landed awkwardly on his left side, his leg twisted beneath him at an unnatural angle. Caryn's head snapped up from her laptop. For a moment, she just stared, her face a mask of shock. She rushed to his side. "Matt, oh my God, Matt, are you okay?" But Matt wasn't okay. His face was pale, beaded with sweat. His teeth were clenched, his eyes squeezed shut in pain. He tried to speak, but all that came out was a pained groan. My hip," he managed to gasp. "Caryn, I think it's broken." This, right here, is the critical moment, the inflection point where, our sources allege, concern began to curdle into calculation. Caryn's first instinct was, of course, to help. She called 911 immediately, her voice trembling as she gave the dispatcher their address. But in the agonizing minutes it took for the paramedics to arrive, as she knelt beside Matt, trying to comfort him while he writhed in excruciating pain, a different part of her mind allegedly began to work. An insider who has worked with Caryn for years describes her as a master strategist. She sees every angle, every opportunity, the source claims. Even in a crisis, a part of her brain is always calculating the next move. As Matt lay helpless on the floor, completely vulnerable and dependent on her, our exclusive theory posits that Caryn saw not just a tragedy, but an opening. The keys to the kingdom were, for the first time, truly and completely within her grasp. The family, the children who saw her as an outsider, were miles away. The lawyers, the accountants, the business contacts, all of their numbers were in her phone. Matt was incapacitated, and she, Caryn Chandler, was in control. The plan, they say, began to form in her mind, right there on the office floor, next to the man she claimed to love. A web of vague assurances. The paramedics arrived and expertly stabilized Matt. The diagnosis at the hospital confirmed their worst fears: a severely fractured hip, a common but particularly dangerous injury for someone with Matt's form of dwarfism. The doctors were blunt. It would require immediate surgery to insert pins and a plate. The recovery would be long, arduous, and painful. He would be heavily medicated for weeks, his mobility severely limited for months. He would be, in every meaningful sense, out of commission. Dr. Albright, the orthopedic surgeon on call, we've changed the name to protect our sources, reportedly explained the situation to Caryn in a private consultation room. "He's tough, but this is a major trauma," the doctor said. "The post-operative phase is critical. He needs zero stress. No business, no family drama. Just rest, medication, and physical therapy. You'll need to be his advocate and his gatekeeper. Gatekeeper. The word hung in the air. For Caryn, it wasn't a burden. It was a mandate. This is where the alleged conspiracy of silence truly began. With Matt being prepped for surgery, heavily sedated, and in no position to speak for himself, Caryn took out her phone. She knew she had to call the family, but how she called them would set the entire plan in motion. It was a masterclass in downplaying, deflecting, and controlling the narrative. The call to Zach. Our reconstruction of this call, based on secondhand accounts from those close to the family, is chilling in its casual deceit. She dialed Zach first. "Hey, Zach, it's Caryn," she began, her voice carefully modulated to sound concerned, but not panicked. "Caryn, what's up? Is everything okay?" Zach replied, likely sensing the oddness of a late-night call. "Oh, everything's fine, don't worry," she said quickly. "I just wanted to let you know your dad had a little setback tonight. Just a silly fall in the office. You know how he is, always trying to do too much." "A fall? Is he okay? Where is he?" He's fine, Caryn insisted, her tone breezy. "He's just a bit banged up and his hip is sore. We're at the hospital, but honestly, the doctors are being completely overcautious. They just want to run some tests and keep him for observation. No need for everyone to panic and rush over. The last thing he needs is a big fuss." Notice the language. Little setback. Silly fall. Sore hip. It was a world away from severely fractured hip and emergency surgery. She framed the hospital visit as a precaution, not a crisis. Zach, an hour away with his own young family, would have no reason to doubt her. "Okay, well, keep me posted. Tell him I love him." "Of course I will," Caryn said, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "I'll handle everything here so he can focus on getting better. You just focus on Tori and the kids. We've got this." She hung up, leaving Zach with a sense of mild concern, but not alarm. The first firewall was built. The call to Jeremy. Next, she called Jeremy. The script was nearly identical. She used the same key phrases, downplaying the severity and emphasizing the need for Matt to rest without any stress. "Hey, Jer, it's Caryn. Don't freak out. Everything is okay," she'd start, immediately setting the tone. "Your dad took a bit of a tumble. He's tough as nails. You know him. The doctors just want him to take it easy for a few days. I'm with him now, and I'll be taking care of everything." Like Zach, Jeremy was kept at a distance, led to believe this was a minor incident that required no immediate action on his part. He was given the impression that a visit would be more of a burden than a help. The message was clear. I am in charge. Stay away. The call to Amy. The call to Amy was the most calculated of all. The history between these two women is famously fraught with tension and rivalry. Caryn knew she had to handle this one perfectly to avoid raising suspicion. "Amy, it's Caryn," she said, her tone professional and detached. "I'm calling to let you know that Matt had an accident this evening. Before you worry, he is stable and the doctors are taking excellent care of him." "An accident? What happened? Is he okay?" Amy's maternal alarm bells would have been ringing. "He had a fall at the house. He's in a lot of pain, but he's strong," Caryn explained, offering a sliver of truth to Amy, knowing she would be harder to fool. "He's going into surgery shortly for his hip. The doctors have advised that he needs an environment of absolute calm to recover. Matt asked for me to handle all communications to minimize his stress." This was the master stroke. By invoking Matt's supposed wishes and the doctor's orders, she effectively shut Amy out. She positioned herself not as a girlfriend, but as Matt's official, medically sanctioned protector. She created a boundary that Amy would feel socially obligated to respect, lest she be seen as the dramatic ex-wife causing a scene. "Of course," Amy would have said, her voice tight with concern and suspicion she couldn't voice. "Please, just tell him. Tell him I'm thinking of him." "I will," Caryn said, and then ended the call. In the span of less than 15 minutes, Caryn Chandler had successfully isolated Matt Roloff from his entire family. She had erected a wall of carefully chosen words, framing her control as helpfulness, her secrecy as protection. With Matt being wheeled into the operating room, unconscious and unaware, she was now the sole source of information. The singular point of contact, the farm, the finances, the future, it was all hers to command. The power grab could now begin in earnest. A blitzkrieg of paperwork. With the family placated and kept at bay, Caryn allegedly launched a swift and ruthless campaign to consolidate her power. While Matt was lying in a hospital bed, recovering from major surgery and cycling through waves of anesthesia and powerful opioid painkillers, Caryn was not by his side, holding his hand. According to our explosive insider reports, she was at the farm office embarking on a legal and financial blitzkrieg. Her first call, made the very morning Matt was in surgery, was not to a family member with an update, but to a high-powered attorney in Portland, a specialist in estate planning and corporate law. This wasn't the folksy family lawyer the Roloffs had used for years. This was a shark. Over a series of encrypted emails and frantic phone calls that first day, Caryn set her plan into motion. The objective, to restructure Matt's assets in a way that would make her the primary, and in some cases, sole beneficiary and controller. Phase 1, the Roloff Legacy Trust. The centerpiece of her strategy was the immediate creation of a new legal entity, which we're calling the Roloff Legacy Trust, based on documents our sources claim to have seen. This wasn't just any trust, it was an irrevocable trust, a complex legal vehicle that is incredibly difficult to alter once it's established. And the fine print was devastating. While Matt Roloff was named as the primary beneficiary, Caryn Chandler was named as the sole trustee. This is a critical distinction. As trustee, she had complete administrative control. She could manage the assets, make investment decisions, and even sell property held within the trust, all without Matt's active signature, under the guise of acting in his best interests. Sources claim she spent hours with the lawyer, faxing and scanning documents from the farm office, property deeds, LLC registration papers for the pumpkin patch business, bank statements, investment portfolios. She moved with a chilling efficiency, transferring the ownership of key farm assets, the very parcels of land the boys had fought for, out of Matt's personal name or his existing, more flexible family trust, and into this new ironclad entity that she alone controlled. Phase 2, securing the signature. Of course, for this to be legal, she needed Matt's signature. And this is perhaps the most disturbing part of the entire alleged scheme. 2 days after his surgery, Caryn arrived at the hospital. Matt was in a bad way. He was disoriented, in constant pain, and on a cocktail of medications, including morphine, that left him in a fog. He was lucid only in short, unpredictable bursts. Caryn came not with grapes in a card, but with a thick leather-bound folder in a pen. "Hey, honey," she cooed, stroking his forehead. "How are you feeling?" Matt could only manage a weak groan. "Tired, hurts." "I know, baby, I know," she said soothingly. "Listen, I don't want to bother you, but there are just a few routine farm bills and insurance forms that need your signature to make sure everything keeps running smoothly while you're in here. Just some boring paperwork. Can you just sign a few spots for me? Then you can go right back to sleep." She presented him with a stack of papers nearly an inch thick, but she didn't show him the complex legal jargon. She cleverly used cover sheets and strategically placed "sign here" sticky tabs to obscure the true nature of the documents. To a man in a morphine-induced haze, it would have looked like any other pile of administrative paperwork. Trusting her completely, believing she was just keeping the farm afloat, Matt, with a shaky hand guided by hers, scrawled his signature where she indicated. He signed away control of his empire, and he never even knew it. With those faint strokes of a pen, Caryn Chandler had legally become the most powerful person in the Roloff dynasty. Phase 3, cutting off the old guard. With the trust established and the assets secured, Caryn's next move was to sever the remaining business ties Matt had with his sons. These were often informal handshake agreements, the kind of deals a father makes with his children. An email, which a source claims to have read, was sent from Matt's official farm account, but written by Caryn to Zach. For years, Zach had a verbal agreement to manage the private tour operations during pumpkin season, for which he received a significant percentage of the profits. The email was cold and corporate. Subject: operational changes for upcoming season. Zach, in light of recent events and a strategic review of farm operations, we will be restructuring the management of the tour program. Your services as an independent contractor will no longer be required for the upcoming season. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. Sincerely, Roloff Farms Management. No dad, no personal touch, just a brutal corporate severing of ties. A similar communication was allegedly sent to Jeremy, terminating a long-standing agreement he had to use the farm as a backdrop for some of his commercial photography and marketing projects. She was systematically erasing the children from the farm's business operations, one cold email at a time. Phase 4, the developers. The final and most audacious step in her initial power grab was to do the one thing Matt had always resisted: entertain offers from real estate developers. While publicly claiming the farm was for the family, Matt had always quietly held a deep emotional attachment to every acre. But Caryn, our insiders insist, has no such sentimentality. To her, the farm isn't a legacy, it's an asset. A very, very valuable one. Less than a week after Matt's fall, while he was still in the hospital, Caryn was reportedly seen at a discreet coffee shop in Hillsborough. She wasn't alone. Across the table from her were two men in expensive suits, representatives from a major real estate development firm we'll call Pacific View Properties. A source who witnessed the meeting was shocked. On the table between them were laminated maps of Roloff Farms, with specific parcels circled in red marker, the very parcels that bordered the main road, the most commercially viable sections of the property. She was all business, the source reported. She was talking about zoning variances, water rights, and potential lot yields. She told them that Mr. Roloff was exploring options for downsizing his portfolio and that she was his authorized agent to begin preliminary discussions. She was actively trying to sell off pieces of the farm, the birthright of the Roloff children. Before Matt was even out of his hospital bed, she was claiming it was what Matt would want, a way to simplify his life after his health scare. But the timeline tells a different story. This wasn't a plan born of concern. The speed and precision of her actions, the lawyer, the trust, the emails, the developer meeting, all point to a premeditated strategy, a playbook she had ready, just waiting for the opportunity to execute it. And Matt's tragic fall had given her that opportunity. Back in their respective homes in Battleground and Hillsborough, the Roloff children were living in a state of manufactured calm. They believed their father was recovering from a minor, if painful, injury. They trusted Caryn's updates, which were consistently brief and positive. "Dad had a good night," she would text the family group chat. "The doctors are really pleased with his progress. He's still very tired and sleeping a lot. Send his love." But as days turned into a week, cracks began to appear in her carefully constructed facade. The complete lack of direct contact with their father was starting to feel less like protection and more like a lockdown. In Washington, Zach and Tori grew increasingly uneasy. "It's just weird," Zach said to Tori one evening, scrolling through his phone. "I've called Dad 3 times this week, and every time it goes to voicemail. Then a few hours later, I get a text from Caryn saying he's sleeping. Is he sleeping 24/7? And the texts don't sound like him," Tori added, looking over his shoulder. "Your dad uses a million emojis and makes typos. These are perfect. They sound like Caryn." A seed of suspicion was planted. Zach knew his father. Even after a major surgery, Matt would want to talk to his kids, to hear his grandkids' voices. This total radio silence was uncharacteristic and deeply unsettling. Meanwhile, Amy was having similar conversations with Chris. "Something's not right, Chris," she said, pacing her kitchen. "Caryn said it was just a hip surgery, but she's keeping him isolated like he's in quarantine. When I had my surgeries, the kids were there. When Matt had his neck surgery years ago, the kids were there. It's what we do. It's what he would want." Amy, the original matriarch of the farm, felt a primal instinct that her family was in trouble. She knew Caryn's ambition and had witnessed her growing influence over Matt for years. She tried calling Matt's hospital room directly, but was told by the nurses station that all calls were being routed through Miss Chandler at the patient's request. It was a dead end, a wall she couldn't penetrate. The final red flag came when Zach received that cold corporate email firing him from the farm tours. He stared at his phone, his blood running cold. It made no sense. Why would his dad, from his hospital bed, authorize such a heartless, impersonal message? It was the opposite of everything his father, for all his faults, stood for in business. He would have called, he would have explained it himself. This was not his dad, this was Caryn. Zach immediately called Jeremy. "Did you get a weird email from the farm?" "The one about my photo contract?" "Yeah," Jeremy said, his voice tense. "What is going on over there? I thought Dad was just resting." The brothers, estranged by the farm conflict, were suddenly united by a common, chilling fear. The vague updates, the blocked phone calls, the bizarre business decisions, it all added up to something sinister. The conspiracy of silence was no longer holding. The children were starting to realize they had been deliberately cut out of the loop. Zach looked at Tori, his face grim with determination. "I don't care what Caryn says. I'm going to the farm. I need to see him. I need to see him for myself." That decision, to defy Caryn's lockdown and check on his father unannounced, would be the spark that ignited the entire powder keg. He had no idea he was about to walk into the middle of a silent coup and uncover the devastating proof of Caryn's ultimate betrayal. Zach is on his way to the farm, about to blow this conspiracy wide open. In the second half of our special report, we will detail the shocking confrontation at the farmhouse, the discovery of the folder that proves Caryn's entire scheme, and the moment Matt Roloff finally learns the terrifying truth about what was done to him in his moment of weakness. The reckoning is coming. You will not want to miss it. Welcome back to LPBW Update's Special Investigative Report, Conspiracy of Silence. In Part 1, we detailed the unconfirmed insider reports surrounding Matt Roloff's terrifying health crisis and the alleged calculated plot by his fiancée Caryn Chandler to use his incapacitation as a smokescreen. She downplayed the severity of his injury to the family, isolated him, and in a shocking blitz of legal maneuvers, allegedly tricked a heavily medicated Matt into signing over control of his assets into a new trust where she was the sole trustee. She severed business ties with his sons and began secret meetings with developers to sell off the very land the family had fought over. But the seeds of doubt had been sown. Zach and Jeremy, alarmed by the radio silence and cold corporate emails, have realized something is deeply wrong. Now, Zach Roloff is taking matters into his own hands. He is driving to the farm, unannounced, determined to break through Caryn's wall of silence and see his father with his own eyes. He believes he's going to check on his dad. He has no idea he's about to uncover the evidence of the greatest betrayal his family has ever faced. A son's worst fears realized. The drive from Battleground, Washington to Roloff Farms is a familiar one for Zach, but today, every mile feels fraught with a cold, gnawing anxiety. The landscape he knows by heart, the rolling hills, the familiar turnoffs, is just a blur outside his window. His hands are clenched on the steering wheel, his knuckles white. He replays Caryn's words in his head. A little setback. He's fine. No need to panic. Every word now sounds like a lie, a carefully chosen piece of misdirection. Tori's worried face as he leaves the house is burned into his mind. "Just be careful, Zach," she had said. "Whatever is going on, don't let her get to you." As he turns onto the long, iconic driveway of the farm, a wave of bitter irony washes over him. This was his childhood home, the sprawling playground where he and his siblings forged their identities. Now, pulling up feels like an intrusion, an act of defiance. He feels like a stranger in his own kingdom. The farm is eerily quiet. The usual hum of activity, the sound of a tractor, the construction on Matt's dream house is absent. A strange stillness hangs in the air, heavy and unnatural. He sees Caryn's SUV parked near the double wide, but no other vehicles. He kills the engine and sits for a moment, stilling himself. He's not here for a fight. He's just here to see his dad. That's what he tells himself. He gets out of his truck and walks toward the double wide. He doesn't bother knocking. This is his father's house. He opens the door and steps inside. And the world stops. The smell hits him first. It's not the familiar scent of sawdust and coffee that always clung to his father's living spaces. It's the sterile, medicinal smell of a hospital room. The living room has been transformed. The comfortable couch and armchairs have been pushed against the wall to make room for a fully electric hospital bed. Next to it stands an IV pole with a half-empty bag of saline solution, a small oxygen concentrator humming softly in the corner, and a bedside table cluttered with orange prescription bottles, a plastic water pitcher, and a cup of untouched Jell-O. This is not the recovery scene of a man who had a little setback. This is the setup for a man who is gravely ill. And in the bed, propped up on a mound of pillows, is his father. Zach freezes in the doorway, his heart plummeting into his stomach. The man in the bed is a pale, hollowed-out version of Matt Roloff. His skin has a grayish, waxy pallor. His face, usually so animated and full of schemes, is slack and gaunt. There are dark circles under his eyes, and his breathing is shallow. He's staring blankly at the television mounted on the opposite wall, but his eyes are unfocused, glassy. He looks smaller, more fragile than Zach has ever seen him. The vibrant, larger-than-life force that was his father has been dimmed to a faint flicker. The sight is a physical blow. A wave of fury, hot and sharp, cuts through his shock. "He's fine," Caryn had said. "The doctors are pleased with his progress." It was all a lie. A monstrous, unforgivable lie. "Dad," Zach says, his voice barely a whisper. Matt's head lolls slowly to the side. It takes him a long moment to focus on the figure in the doorway. A flicker of confusion crosses his face, then a glimmer of recognition. "Zach," he slurs, his voice weak and raspy, thick with medication. What? What are you doing here? Supposed to be resting." Zach walks slowly toward the bed, his boots feeling like lead weights. "I wanted to see you, Dad. Caryn said you were doing great, but..." He trails off, gesturing vaguely at the medical equipment surrounding the bed. "Caryn?" "Yeah," Matt mumbles, his eyelids fluttering. She's taking care of it, all of it. So much. Paperwork." His voice fades and his head slumps back onto the pillow, his eyes closing. He's drifted off again, pulled back under by the tide of painkillers. Zach stands there, watching his father's chest rise and fall, and a cold, terrifying clarity descends upon him. Caryn wasn't just downplaying the situation. She was deliberately hiding his father's true condition. She had turned his father's home into a secret infirmary, cutting him off from the world, from his own children, while he was in this terribly vulnerable state. The question is no longer if she was lying, but why? Why go to such extreme lengths? His eyes scan the room and land on the small office area at the other end of the double wide. It's his father's nerve center, usually a chaotic mess of blueprints, invoices, and half-finished projects. But now it's unnervingly tidy. Stacked neatly on the center of the desk, standing out against the clean surface, is a single, expensive-looking leather folder. It's brand new, embossed with gold lettering that reads RLT Administrative. It doesn't look like something his father would use. It looks corporate. It looks like something Caryn would use. Driven by a surge of adrenaline and suspicion, Zach walks over to the desk. He hesitates for only a second before flipping open the folder. What he finds inside makes the blood in his veins turn to ice. The first document is thick, bound with a blue legal cover. The title in stark bold letters reads, "The Roloff Legacy Trust Agreement." He's not a lawyer, but he flips through the pages, his eyes scanning for names. He sees his father's name, Matthew J. Roloff, listed as grantor and beneficiary, and then he sees the line that stops his breath. Sole trustee, Caryn L. Chandler. He reads the paragraph below it, the dense legalese suddenly becoming crystal clear. The trustee holds the power to manage, administer, sell, lease, or otherwise dispose of any and all assets held within the trust in the sole and absolute discretion of the trustee for the benefit of the beneficiary. She has total control. He frantically flips to the last page. His father's signature is there, but it's weak, a shaky, spidery scrawl that barely resembles his usual confident autograph. And the date next to it is from 2 days after the fall, the day Caryn claimed he was recovering nicely. His hands are trembling now. He digs deeper into the folder. He finds copies of property deeds, officially transferring ownership of Parcel A, Parcel B, and the parcel containing the original farmhouse and the big red barn from Matthew J. Roloff to the Roloff Legacy Trust. The filings are time-stamped just last week. Then he finds the emails, printed out in cold black ink, are the exact emails sent to him and Jeremy, terminating their contracts. At the bottom, in the email's metadata, he can see the IP address it was sent from. It wasn't from the hospital. It was sent from the farm's own network. From this very office. The final document is the most damning of all. It's a single-page memo on the letterhead of a high-end commercial real estate firm, Pacific View Properties. It's addressed to Chandler. Subject, summary of preliminary discussion, re Roloff Farms property. Dear Miss Chandler, it was a pleasure to meet with you on Wednesday. As discussed, we are preparing a preliminary valuation for the sale of parcels B and C. Our initial assessment suggests significant developer interest, and we are confident we can secure offers well in excess of agricultural value. Per your request, we will keep this inquiry strictly confidential and will communicate only with you as the sole authorized agent for the trust. We await your signal to proceed. Zach looks at the date on the memo. It was from 3 days after his father's fall. While Matt was lying in a hospital fighting for his life, Caryn was meeting with developers to carve up and sell his legacy. It all clicks into place. The vague phone calls, the blocked visits, the isolation, the lies. It was a coup. A quiet, insidious, ruthlessly efficient coup. She had used his father's broken body as a window of opportunity to seize everything. A white-hot rage, purer and more intense than anything he has ever felt, floods through him. The betrayal is so profound, so absolute, it feels like a physical violation. This wasn't about a disagreement over a farm sale price. This was predatory. This was evil. He pulls out his phone, his fingers shaking so badly he can barely operate it. He takes pictures of every single page in the folder. The trust document, the deeds, the emails, the developer's memo. Then he makes the call. Jeremy, he says, his voice low and dangerously calm. You need to get to the farm right now. Tell Audrey to come with you. Then I need you to call Mom. Tell her and Chris to get here as fast as they can. Don't tell them why on the phone. Just tell them it's a code red emergency. There's a pause on the other end. Zach, what is it? What's wrong? Zach looks over at his father, sleeping in a chemical-induced sleep in the hospital bed, completely unaware of how thoroughly he has been betrayed. It's worse than we ever could have imagined, Zach says, his voice breaking with fury. Caryn has taken everything, and I have the proof. A convergence of truth and lies. The next 45 minutes at Roloff Farms are the quietest part of the storm. Zach sits in a chair by his father's bed, the damning leather folder resting on his lap. He doesn't move. He just watches his dad breathe, the rage inside him solidifying into a cold, hard resolve. He is no longer just a son. He is a protector. He is the guardian of a legacy that has just been stolen. He hears the crunch of gravel outside and sees Caryn's SUV pull up. She gets out, carrying grocery bags, a cheerful, oblivious smile on her face. She walks in, humming to herself, and stops dead when she sees him sitting there. Her smile vanishes, replaced by a flicker of panic, then a mask of stern disapproval. "Zachary, what on earth are you doing here?" she says, her voice sharp. "I specifically told you your father needed absolute quiet. You shouldn't be here. You're stressing him out." Zach slowly stands up, the folder in his hand. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. The quiet intensity in his eyes is more terrifying than any shout. "Stressing him out," he repeats, the words dripping with contempt. "Look at him, Caryn. Just look at him. You told me he had a sore hip. You told me he was fine. This isn't fine. He's doped up on so much medication he barely knows his own name. What have you been doing to him?" Caryn's face pales. She sets the groceries down, her composure starting to crack. "The doctors prescribed his medication. It's for the pain. I am following their orders to the letter to ensure he has a calm, stress-free environment to heal." "A stress-free environment?" Zach takes a step forward. "Is that why you were meeting with developers from Pacific View Properties 3 days after he almost died? Was that part of the doctor's orders too?" The color drains completely from Caryn's face. She stares at the folder in his hand, and in that moment, she knows she's been caught. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammers, but the lie is weak, pathetic. "Don't you?" Zach says, his voice dangerously low. He opens the folder and throws the developer's memo onto the coffee table. "Or how about this? The Roloff Legacy Trust. With you, Caryn Chandler, as the sole trustee. Did my dad ask you to do that while he was high on morphine? Did he ask you to sign his entire life's work over to you?" "You don't understand," she says, her voice rising, defensive. "I was protecting him. I was protecting his assets from all the drama, from you boys and your constant demands. This simplifies everything for him. It ensures his legacy is safe." "His legacy is safe? With you?" Zach scoffs, the sound harsh and bitter. "You were selling it off piece by piece. You fired me. You fired Jeremy. You were cutting us out completely. This isn't protection, Caryn. This is a heist." Just then, the front door swings open again. Jeremy and Audrey stride in, their faces grim. Seconds later, Amy and Chris follow, their expressions a mixture of confusion and alarm. They all stop and take in the scene. The hospital bed, Zach and Caryn locked in a standoff, the papers scattered on the table. "Oh my God," Amy breathes, her hand flying to her mouth as she sees Matthew. "What the hell is going on?" Jeremy demands, his eyes fixing on Caryn. "She's been lying to us," Zach says, never taking his eyes off Caryn. "About everything. Dad's health, the farm, all of it." Caryn is now surrounded. The united front of the family she had worked so hard to divide and conquer is standing before her. Her carefully constructed world is collapsing in real time. "This is exactly what I was trying to avoid," she shrieks, her voice cracking with desperation. "All of you, descending on him like vultures. You don't care about his health. You only care about the farm and the money." "We care about our father," Jeremy roars, taking a menacing step forward. "Something you clearly don't. You saw him fall, and all you saw was a $sign. "I love him," Caryn cries, tears now streaming down her face. "I did this for him, for us, to secure our future. He and I are a team. This is what he would have wanted." "No," a weak voice rasps from the doorway of the bedroom. The argument stops instantly. Every head turns. Standing there, leaning heavily on a walker, is Matt Roloff. He's awake. His eyes, though clouded with pain, are lucid, and they are filled with a dawning, horrific understanding. He must have woken up from the shouting, pulled from his medicated haze by the raw emotion filling his home. He has clearly heard enough. He looks at the scene before him. His sons, their faces contorted in rage. His ex-wife, her face streaked with tears of concern. And Caryn, the woman he loved, the woman he was going to marry, standing there like a cornered animal. His eyes drift down to the folder, to the legal documents, to the real estate memo. The pieces click together in his mind with sickening clarity. The boring paperwork she had him sign in the hospital, her insistence on handling everything. The fog of his memory from the past week starts to clear, and he sees her actions not through the lens of love and trust, but through the cold, hard light of deception. Matt, baby, let me explain, Caryn starts, moving toward him. They're twisting everything. I was just trying to help. Help? Matt's voice is quiet, but it cuts through the room like a shard of glass. He looks at her, and the sense of betrayal in his eyes is profound, a wound far deeper than any broken bone. You told them I was fine? To protect you from stress, she pleads. You had me sign these, he asks, gesturing a shaky hand toward the folder, to secure our assets, for us. And the developers, Caryn? He asks, his voice trembling with the weight of his next question. Were you meeting with them for us, too? Caryn's face crumples. There is no answer she can give. The silence is her confession. Matt lets out a sound that is half sob, half laugh, a sound of utter devastation. The woman who he thought was his partner, his protector, had used his moment of ultimate vulnerability, his potential deathbed, to gut his legacy and steal his kingdom from under him. He had trusted her with his life, and she had used that trust to try and erase his children from it. I trusted you, he whispers, the words heavy with pain. I trusted you with everything. He looks at his sons, at Zach and Jeremy, the boys he had fought with, the boys he had pushed away. He sees now that their fight was born of a desire to be part of his world. Caryn's actions were born of a desire to own it. He turns his gaze back to Caryn, and the warmth, the love that was always there for her is gone. In its place is a cold, dead emptiness. You didn't protect me, Caryn, he says, his voice gaining a sliver of its old strength, a finality that is absolute. You buried me. He takes a shaky breath, steadying himself on the walker. Get your things, he says, the words spoken with a chilling calm. I want you to pack your things and get off my farm now. Caryn stares at him, her mouth agape, searching his face for any hint of indecision, any chance to fix this. But there is none. She has not just broken his trust, she has annihilated it. She has shown him the person she truly is when he is at his most helpless. Defeated, humiliated, and exposed, Caryn Chandler gives one last broken look at the family she tried to dismantle, then turns and walks toward her room to pack. The conspiracy of silence is over, but the wreckage will last a lifetime. A fractured kingdom. Our insider reports conclude with this explosive confrontation, but the story is far from over. What follows is the beginning of a long, painful, and uncertain chapter for the Roloff family. Sources close to the situation describe a farm in turmoil. Caryn Chandler is gone, her engagement ring reportedly left on the kitchen counter before she drove away for the last time. But her legal machinations remain. The Roloff Legacy Trust is a real, legally binding document. Matt's signature, however obtained, is on it. What ensues now, we are told, is a brutal and costly legal battle. Matt, with the full support of Amy and his children, has hired a new team of lawyers to try and invalidate the trust, arguing that the documents were signed under duress, and while he lacked the mental capacity to understand them due to his medical state. It's an uphill battle, one that will force the family to lay bare the most painful and private details of this betrayal in a court of law. The farm itself is in limbo. The dream house construction has halted indefinitely, a half-finished monument to a future that will never be. The day-to-day operations are now a source of immense stress for Matt as he embarks on a genuine and very difficult physical recovery. But amidst the legal and financial chaos, a fragile, unexpected healing has begun. Zach and Tori, Jeremy and Audrey are now regular visitors to the farm again. Not as business partners, but as sons and daughters-in-law. They bring the grandkids, whose laughter now fills the rooms that were, just weeks ago, filled with silence and deception. They help their father, not for a paycheck, but because he is their father and he needs them. Amy and Chris have also stepped in, providing a steadying presence. The old wounds between Matt and Amy, while not forgotten, have been put aside in the face of a common enemy and a shared love for their children and the legacy they built together, however flawed it was. For the first time in nearly a decade, the core Roloff family is united. They have been forged back together in the crucible of this shared trauma. The ultimate irony is that in her calculated attempt to seize control and excise the children from the Roloff legacy, Caryn Chandler may have inadvertently been the catalyst that saved it. She forced the family to see what was truly at stake and what they stood to lose. Not just land or money, but each other. The future of Roloff Farms is more uncertain than ever. Will Matt have the strength to fight the legal battle and win back control? If he does, will he finally find a way to pass it on to his children, having now seen the alternative? Or has this ordeal shattered his dream for good? These are the questions that hang over the rolling hills of Helvetia, Oregon. This insider report has peeled back the curtain on a dark and disturbing chapter, a story of love, trust, and the ultimate betrayal. What do you think of this shocking turn of events? Was Caryn a cold, calculating opportunist from the start? Or was she a woman who was pushed to extremes by the endless family drama, believing she was acting in Matt's best interest? Let us know your explosive theories in the comments section below. And if you want to stay on the cutting edge of every development in this ongoing saga, make sure you are subscribed to LPBW Update and have those notifications turned on. We will be tracking the legal proceedings, the family dynamics, and the future of the farm every step of the way. You won't find this depth of analysis anywhere else. Thank you for joining us for this special report. Until next time, stay informed.